There we go. Good afternoon again. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get to JRC in a moment. First, the disclaimers and the trigger warnings. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shots campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links will be found right there in the description box, along with what I hope are some helpful labels. So if you want to deep dive the JRC on your own time, you're welcome to do so. Trigger warning, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity. And when we talk about places like the Judge Rothberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys or other places like it, you will hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you've got a child that's 16 or younger and watching this, parental supervision is very much advised. Also, yes, I am stimming like crazy, so you may see possibly me look like I'm shaking. I'm not. I'm doing kind of a weird leg shaking stim thing that I do on occasion because my routine was interrupted so abruptly yesterday, and this is one of the self-coping mechanisms I have that kind of help me keep somewhat on track, so I apologize for that in advance. Alright, folks, where we left off last time, recognizing clinical advances in the field. Oh, we actually covered that, didn't we? Yep, now we're going to S&D codified laws. In 2015, the National Association of the State Developmental Disability Directors, which is also the exact same group, including my old boss, by the way, that signed on against aversive therapies being used, physical in particular, in treatment programs, surveyed states about their rules, policies, guidelines, contracts, or practices that governed aversive interventions. Of the 45 states responding, 82% reported that aversives are disallowed for use in services for people with eye/developmental disorders. Well, folks, over here, even in Ruby Red, Missouri, physical aversives are not allowed. Psychological mindfuckery, like that which can be found inside ABA, is still used and utilized. Taking away of items that are actually already yours, and you don't get to have it back until you perform being neurotypical long enough to satisfy them in order to get your own stuff back, but they at least do not allow the physical aversives anymore. So, when you are in a situation where literally you have, at the very least, 45 states at this time with legislation already on the books, it took place not that long after what happened to Andre McCollins went viral back in 2012 when that video surveillance footage got released, that they started going ahead and getting those laws on the books. That should tell you everything. You think even with federal government, as corrupt as some of those people are, you would think that even they would say, well, obviously they consider this as a very, very bad, risky, not good thing, and we're not going to be doing that. But no, not with JRC, not with supposedly progressive Massachusetts. You don't know why I'm not on one team or another. This case is it. This case is it. It broke through. It broke my rose-colored glasses into a billion tiny fragments, and it just will never be the same for how I view politics or corruption ever again since. Let's just put it that way. A more recent review indicates that at least 28 states have enacted prohibitions against the use of contingent electric shock and other painful aversive procedures. I'm very happy that due to the collective effort of a whole lot of us, and the fact that out of the whole lot of us, we were a very particularly bullheaded and stubborn group of individuals who had no problem with camping out on Capitol Hill till the legislation got passed, that my state happens to be, I believe, one of those. I'm not 100% specific on electric shock, but at the very least, physical aversives were removed due to a whole lot of us being bullheaded and stubborn. If you notice, I tend to gravitate towards individuals who are like myself, and at least in that area and capacity. They're my people. The proliferation of state statutes and regulations severely limiting or banning the use of contingent electric shock and other painful aversive techniques both prior to and after 2018 clearly demonstrates a significant and widespread change in the standard of care for people with disabilities. Let me be clear though. The fact of the matter is, overall, largely viewed, even before we got specific legislation put on the books, this was already considered the general consensus, folks. A lot of these states we're talking about here had already done away with physical aversives and had done so quite some time ago. The main reasons why laws got put on the books, because when that video of Andre McCollum's went viral, it shocked people all the way up to those individuals who are in the high places in regards to working in the service system. It shook some people and made noise in a way that I've never seen before, and to be quite honest, haven't really ever seen since. Service system does not like getting shook up, and it tries to avoid it a good majority of the time. So the fact that people felt the need, even though already physical aversives were no longer mainstream anyways, they had already been progressed out, why they felt they need to have that legislation on the books, is because it kind of made people scared. Well, what if somebody comes into our state like Dr. Israel? It just starts that insanity. If we don't have any legislation on the books, we're just going off of the fact that most of these people got rid of these practices. But we need to make sure the protections are there in case somebody comes along and tries to start that insanity over here. Well, unfortunately, Missouri, we had, but it was done under the troubled teen evangelical industry. So, even though it's the exact same animal, it's not treated the same way. Except by people like me and the individuals who fight against it. But it's a double-edged sword when you're dealing with faith organizations, because they're going to use ad hominem attacks forever and ever and ever. But anyways, yeah, that's why it happened the way that it did, why a lot of these states moved forward not long after that went viral, to make sure that nobody can come into our states like what happened in Massachusetts and start that kind of weirdness here. And considering we're ruby red and we have more than enough bizarre weirdness that should have gone the way of the dodo, and the modern world should be ashamed, but unfortunately we are crawling so far back in time that if before we even know it, we're going to look outside and there's going to be a dude in rags calling out with a wheelbarrow, "Bring out your dead." But anyways, let me go ahead and continue. Policy statements issued by leading national organizations support the need for a ban on the adverse interventions like the GED. For years, professional disability organizations, national associations, and other clinical experts have taken public positions against the use of contingent electric shock and other aversive interventions. Thank you for putting in professionals here. Quit just saying it's just a disability rights activist. First of all, fuck you very much. Fuck you very much. I do say that with my full chest for even using that as a way to brush people off. Way to show all of us exactly how you feel about those of us who do have disabilities, really. Especially considering the fact that the only difference between me and you, or anybody with a disability and you, is one accident away. I like to tell people this. It's not a fear tactic, it's a fact. Because it is very easy for these individuals who look down on and despise us and treat us like dirt. It doesn't take much to get you to enter in and be one of our numbers. It really doesn't. People need to start thinking about that sort of thing. Think about how you treat individuals. You ever hear that phrase, "There but for the grace of God goes I"? Take a look around you in the world right now and start internalizing that. And I would say do it right now. I'm not being an alarmist. I've always been very good at seeing the writing on the wall. But let me go ahead and continue here. On September 30th of 2009, a group of preeminent professional and consumer associations for persons with IDD sent a joint letter to the Federal Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Education, the U.S. Attorney General, congressional committees, and human rights organizations, calling for an end to inhumane and unnecessary methods of behavior modification, including the use of painful electric shock and food deprivation. So this was going over the entirety of the so-called behavior modification program at the JRC. Okay, so we're not just talking about the get dice, we're talking about the food deprivation, the sleep deprivation, the bizarre behavioral rehearsals that we have gone over and covered on this channel as well. It goes after the whole thing, as it should. As it should. Let's go ahead and continue here. In 2010, the ARC of the United States and the American Association of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, also known as AAIDD, the oldest and largest interdisciplinary organization of professionals and citizens concerned about the human rights of persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities, issued a joint policy statement against the use of painful aversives in favor of positive behavioral supports. Think about that for a moment, folks. The oldest and largest interdisciplinary organization of professionals and citizens. So this idea, it's all the disability advocates, rights advocates, and I just don't know what good is good for them. First of all, again, from my chest, from my heart, fuck you very much. Number two, no, it is not just us. However, we are human beings. We deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, whether we are disabled or not. To write us off based off of our disability tells you exactly just how ableist the system still is. That's why people like me are still out here advocating and why we still exist. Because there is still a whole hell of a lot of work to be done in regards to how people with disabilities are looked at, treated, even dealt with on a national and state scale when we are a part of announcements in regards to policies that specifically and directly affect us, how the media covers us, how we are interviewed, how the interviewer acts within those interviews when they're speaking to us. Yeah, we shouldn't have to add that there's professionals in here. But because no one, unfortunately, takes us seriously enough on our own, we have to add that extra umph. Which means not only is there still more work to be done, there will be probably others who will pick up the work long after I have passed from this world. But anyways, let me go ahead and continue here. Joint Position Statement of AAIDD and the ARC on Behavioral Supports, August the 23rd, 2010, extended 2015. In 2019, AAIDD renewed their long-standing call for the immediate elimination and permanent discontinuation of electric skin shock as an intervention for the behavior of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I will add in this, though, JRC, for all you say that but you would never understand. You're not a professional that has ever worked with this particular population within. Shut up. For the love of God, shut up. Because the math is not mathing. The JRC is not the only treatment program in all the world that takes in individuals that have these types of behavioral issues. Not by a long shot. Rivendell here in town takes on some of those types of students. I know ARC handles some individual cases that are more community-based, but I know they handle them. I know DCO, Developmental Center of the Ozarks, does. I know NOVA does, I know Judavine does, and that's just in my state. That's not counting all the different other providers and organizations that are serving that particular population nationwide or worldwide. So yes, professionals that work in the service system, yes, with that particular refractory population, myself, back in my state days, included, by the way, I would like to add, on top of being an individual that had those issues in my childhood as an autistic. Yeah. The math doesn't math. If we've managed it, then how is this even still a conversation that we're having? It's ridiculous. Alright, we're going to read this last paragraph and go ahead and close up for this one. In 2016, the National Association of State Directors of Developmental Disability Services, NASDDDS, which represents state IDD agencies in 50 jurisdictions, Puerto Rico, and the District of Columbia, submitted formal comments to the FDA rejecting the use of interventions that cause pain and harm for the purpose of modifying behavior instead of promoting the use of positive behavioral support, which we all know the JRC knows nothing about, and neither does the layman. But to be honest, the layman's generally not expected to, but professionals are. Positive behavioral support is an umbrella term under which several different types of treatment programs can be found, depending on what the needs of the particular person happens to be, to see which treatment program would best suit and help them. I say that because the JRC has almost conditioned people to this point to use that term instead of the more proper positive behavioral reinforcement. But I'm going to keep saying it because it annoys me, and I am a stickler for even getting the details right. But I love going through these types of pieces because it really is a breath of fresh air. It is so nice just to read rational human beings writing in a rational, intelligent manner and pointing out the obvious in such a painful way that it boggles the mind that anybody would feel the need to argue against this. Argue against getting rid of physical aversives in 2025. The fact that this is a conversation should disturb a lot of people. And on that note, folks, we're going to go ahead and close out for this one. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and of course, folks, please don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do. Hope you have a good one. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone.